1, a 2, a 1.
It's time for the Better Horses radio show. So let's saddle up and ride as we explore the Western way of life, horses and cows, family and friends, a relationship with the land, and a relationship with God. It's all here on Better Horses Radio. Now let's hit the trails with the Better Horses team.
And welcome to Better Horses Radio. We are so glad you joined us. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And you get to talk about nothing but the equine business along with Merle. Very excited to announce in this episode, we're also going to talk about better cattle.
Yes. And also we got Shelly Phalen of Phalen Equine coming up on one of our segments.
Now we're going to take Shelly and she's going to talk about Wellness Center. But more importantly, you and I and Shelly are going to have an open discussion of somebody that came to us and said, hey, I want to run a boarding barn. And what does that look like? And Merle and I, you talk about this and stop laughing while we're doing it.
I would suggest a good counselor, you know.
So Shelly's coming to us with a lot of business knowledge, a lot of accounting knowledge, and that's going to be a lot of fun to walk through. And now we got a controversial subject matter coming up in the show.
Yeah, Rex Buckman with the Bar U Ranch. He's a working rancher out in the Flint Hills, and we had his cohort, Matt Joe, on last week. So we're going to follow up and give Rex a little airtime this week, maybe a rebuttal to Matt.
You know, Rex is coming on board and he wants to talk to all the farriers and also people who own horses and talk about natural balance shoeing method. Now, this is going to be a little controversial for everybody out there on how to actually trim up a shoe effectively to stop lameness. And I think that's going to be a good subject matter. I'm going to have another farrier come on board, so we're really looking forward to that.
That'll be good. And our third segment is Ron Poorman, a rancher at the Bell Farms, and he's going to be talking about his cow-calf operation.
You know, bringing us an update of what's going on as far as cattlemen today. And he's going to offer a nice little rounding off of our better segment of better cattle. But before we get into all that and we break away into this great show, let's throw it over to Studio B to Mark Alpold, who's going to give us his thoughts on better cattle. Mark, go ahead.
Well, Ed, I begin this edition of Better Cattle looking at weather. Severe weather in May across the country was some of the worst we've seen in over 10 years. Feedlot operators in the plains caught a lot of that storm activity. Weather observers said there were over 460 tornadoes. Listen to these numbers. 460 tornadoes nationwide during just the month of May. Nearly 3,500 severe wind events. 1,600 hail events, pea-sized hail or larger. Each of those numbers were the highest for the month of May since 2011. And before that, we go all the way back to 1998 to find a more active weather month for the month of May than we saw this year. Now, June doesn't offer much relief, according to a lot of weather observers, especially the first half of this month. The data also suggests that the rain spigot is going to shut off by mid-July, something that is not unusual, but hot and dry from mid-July past Labor Day, they say. Hot, dry weather, again, is no real surprise for feedlot managers. Superior Livestock gets a jump on the summer sales season here next Monday, Tuesday, their annual Corn Belt Classic coming from South Sioux City, Nebraska. Early estimates show that they'll have 60 to 65,000 head for sale, so that'll be a good market test and something certainly to watch, the numbers coming out of that sale next Monday, Tuesday. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive buyers are next week. With the futures retreating, corn continues lower, yet feeder cattle can't find much traction. August is the lead month now, and it will be for 3 months. So we'll be dealing with that. We're watching 248, 255 as technical support numbers to watch. May was beef month. We'll end with this. May was beef month. June is dairy month. So maybe a big glass of milk with that steak. How about that? I'm Mark Oppold, helping you produce better cattle and wishing you a profitable week ahead.
And Mark, we appreciate you coming back every week and giving us an update with better cattle. Merle, we're going to walk into another great operations as far as it comes to better cattle. And hey, I know you're having a great successful breeding program this year, but you just had another foal, I hear, landed.
Yeah, we had the sixth and unexpected one. So those are kind of fun, especially when everything goes good. We had a mare last year we tried twice on, and she checked open the last time we checked, and we never did anything. And Saturday morning, the my hired guy showed up, and he said, "Hey, is Crimson supposed to have a pole in her stall?"
And Merry Christmas. And yes,
Yeah.
for all you listeners out there, we are professionals and we know what we're doing. So keep that in mind. Hey, I want everybody to stay with us. We're going to come back with Shelly Phalen at Phalen Equine Wellness Center as Merle and I and Shelly get to talk about what it's like to own a boarding barn. We'll be right back.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
2024 is the year to compete in the world's largest horse show, the Pinto World Championship. This 13-day event begins June 8th, starting with our youth weekend through June 22nd, and caters to all riding levels and ages. With over $1 million in cash and prizes, there are no qualifications required to enter. Held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, located at the Ford Complex, the Pinto World Championship caters to all types of equines. With over 700 classes, the Pinto Show welcomes a variety of breeds to compete. It's a family environment with healthy competition. For more information, check out the website pintoworld.com.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
Routine dental examination and treatments are essential for high-quality horse care. To prevent potential problems, a horse's mouth should be examined at least once a year. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins, Equine Field Service Veterinarian at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. We can examine the mouth and provide a treatment plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
And welcome back to Better Horses Radio. We are so glad you joined us. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And Merle, this is going to be a great segment. We're going to talk about actual operations and the business side of running a barn.
Yes, this is going to be a good one. You don't want to miss this.
And this episode is brought to you by
Kleinschmidt's Western Wear sponsor this segment. Find them at KLEINBOOT.com.
And very excited to help us round out this conversation of what it's like financially to run a boarding barn. We have Shelly Phalen of Phalen Equine Wellness Center, and she is located right here in Kansas. And we want to welcome Shelly to Better Horses Radio. Shelly, welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, Shelly and Merle, this is going to be an open conversation. We're going to take time out to have a really deep dive of this. Shelly Phalen has an extensive background, not only in the horse industry, but also in the business industry. And you're going to be able to actually tell us that you've owned and shown horses right into your teenage years. And you have a beautiful facility out at your area. So, Shelly, just talk about your experience in the horse industry and talk about your business side when it comes to having a boarding barn.
You bet. So my background, begged for a horse as a child, didn't come from a horse family, but I got the bug. I think my folks thought it was a phase, but it's clearly not. So had my own horses for a long time, showed paints, showed open circuits here, showed some quarter horses. Fast forward, I raised two daughters, and it will be coming up on 8 years ago that we bought what we now call Phalen Equine Wellness and Horse Hotel. I previously had told my husband I'd really love an indoor arena. I don't have any place to ride. It's hard keeping your horses at home. And as my kids grew up, I knew I wanted the social aspect of a facility where I could ride and learn from others. And so coming up on 8 years ago, we bought the barn, and it's been an interesting journey over the last 8 years, to say the least.
So somebody told me that a boarding barn is like a restaurant. no boarding barn is the same and no restaurants are the same, but they're all serving food at the end of the day. You talk about the operations. I know between you and I, Merle, we all have a different twist of how we do this. Why don't you describe your operations?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. So we run a 40 stall facility. We run our facility under a set of very high standards. So just a few things to give you an idea of that. We clean stalls not once a day, but twice a day. And what I have learned over the last 8 years is feeding your handful of horses at home and cleaning those stalls is a lot different than cleaning 40 and caring for 40 to 50 horses. So what I learned very quickly is this is a business. You have to run it like one. And I had a wise horseman once tell me that it is not your job to make horse ownership affordable for others. So horses are expensive. I think a lot of people get into the boarding business for similar reasons. We love horses. And then we can make decisions grounded in emotion and not business. And so I think it's key to be successful to make all of your operational decisions grounded in business.
Merle, I'm going to throw a question to you. Shelly brought up a great point that it's not our job to make it affordable, but we look at margins. We'll talk about operations, but you also put another twist, you and Shelly, putting a training program on top of that, which is obviously your margins are going to be a little larger. Speak to that.
In theory, you think it would be, but sometimes it seems like margins are margins. And, I don't know that necessarily. I think it adds a different element maybe to it and maybe a different draw than you'd get. But I don't know. Shelly could probably feel that one. I don't know that the training adds that much more bottom line. Do you, Shelly?
No, I mean, we don't do any of the trainings. I had an instructor in here for a while that did lessons on a limited basis. I think for me, and it's the same with training, like one of the things I think about is you have to know your worth. Time is money and everything costs something. So it becomes very important. My accounting my background in business is accounting. So I do have a financial background, which has helped a lot. So I built a lot of budgets. I spend time looking at all of our expenses. You have to know what everything costs because you have to price accordingly. And what I figured out, if I'm losing money, what that really means is I'm paying for part of 40 horses, not just my own. So you absolutely have to be able to measure your time and know that time is money and price things accordingly.
That's a great point. I think sometimes when you underprice yourself, thinking, okay, well, this is what we charged last year, this is what, so-and-so does down the road, you're actually subsidizing their horse ownership and you're taking ownership of those costs and put it on your side of the equation, which, like you said, really shouldn't matter. They can either afford the horse or they can't. And that being said, man, I don't know about you guys, but everything has jumped. I mean, labor,
crazy,
feed, hay is nuts right now. I don't think the average person, that if they don't buy a lot of hay or grain, realize the difference. I mean, the cost. What have you all seen about that?
So that brings up a good point as far as indirect costs of labor and depreciating your expenses. Shelly, I'll go right into your category. I run a 24 stall barn. I do not clean my stalls every day. We try to operate with a 7 to 8 hour turnout every day. And then we bring them back in the stalls. As conversely, you have pasture people out there with just pasture board. So your operations can change. And I think the questions and I'll play devil's advocate here. I'll be the boarder for just a moment. Shelly, your rates are way too high. And how can I afford $7, $8, $9, or even $1,000 on a monthly basis? Keep in mind, in Connecticut, it's $1,500. In Florida, it's about $1,500. Right. In the Midwest, you're probably running between $5,000 and $1,000 a month. People that are not in the industry as far as the care and custody can't seem to figure out how can you justify that when they do simple math with how many horses you have and they do look at the revenue you've got coming in.
Right.
So your profit margins, is basically the big question here.
Yeah. There really aren't any, is the short answer. I think Merle probably would agree.
Well, this segment's going to go real
Realistically
fast then. Okay, here we go. No, that's a very good point. Go ahead, Shelley.
Realistically speaking, though, I think when you're talking to a boarder, like everyone would love to have. So I'll tell you things. What we've worked on doing is streamlining everything, because when you have 40 to turn in and out, I can't put on 40 sets of fly boots. I can't put on 40 fly sheets. And so we have had to say no. We have to understand our capabilities. We have to understand our limits. And honestly, we have to insulate our employees from too much complexity. So I will tell people, this is what we're willing to do. This is what we can do well. Just imagine the time it takes to turn in and out 40 horses and ship them around. You have your grain, you have your hay, you have your bedding. Fuel is expensive. We need sand for the indoor. We need new footing in the outdoor. Somebody breaks a gate. Somebody breaks a stall door. Like, there's the insurance and the taxes and all of that, I think, are things that maybe the average person doesn't really think about in terms of a facility.
Do you guys notice if you leave and you're out of town for, maybe, I don't care, it maybe is a day, it might be a week, but nothing seems to break until I leave? I mean, that just seems like a golden rule for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you have plans and someone calls in sick, or yes, that's exactly.
You get a sick horse that, you're the last one to check.
Well, if anybody's
right.
cleaning their stalls twice a day, Shelley, you're going to answer this question. Let's talk about labor for just a moment, and being able to have somebody there every day. I don't know what time you open your barn. We open ours up at 3:00 in the morning. In summertime, we turn our horses out at night. In the wintertime, we're turning them out at 3:30 in the morning and bringing them in at 10:30. Your operations, you got to be totally different by trying to clean stalls twice a day.
Yeah, so we have a pretty set schedule. We don't start that early. Now, I have plenty of folks who start to ride that early, but we kind of keep our feeding schedule the same. We feed in the morning, start at 7. We feed grain, hay. We get everybody where they need to be. And what we do is, with that number of horses, we turn some out at night and some go out during the day. And then if the temperatures get too hot during the day in the summer, we bring them in early. If it's too cold in the winter, they don't stay out very long. We then clean stalls, and then you have bathrooms to clean, you have the common areas to clean. Then we have a couple of hours with what I would call project time. Project time is to clean the wash rack, paint some fence, mow the grass, weed eat, drag the arenas, water the arenas. And then at 3:00, we start again. We do a run through of the stalls, we feed, and then we change everybody out. So the daytime horses come in and the nighttime horses go out.
Now, Shelley, I'm curious to see how you do it. I know how we also clean twice a day here, but I've found what works for me is I have actually several part-time employees, and I'll have 2 to 3 in the morning and do the morning shift, and 2 to 3 at night and do the evening shift, and kind of keep that going throughout the week. How do you have full-time employees? Do you use part-time employees at all? How do you use your employees?
Yep, we use a mix. I have a full-time gentleman who is our lead gentleman, and he's worth his weight in gold. Then I have had a mix of full-time and part-time, and honestly, it has been so hard to find labor that we kind of take what we can get. And we are currently working a mix of full-time people with part-time people sprinkled in. In the summertime, it's easier to find maybe some of the student help. And they want to be there and they do a really good job, but then you've got to replace them come fall and winter when they're not available.
Okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit here as we talk about the business side. Shelley, you brought it up earlier. It's not a friendship, it's a business. However, we fall into that because this is horses, and all three of us will agree it's an emotional business. So with that in mind, let's talk about barn drama and how a boarder can make and break your barn. Shelley, you get first dibs on this one.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I think I think people would tell you we have a great environment at the barn. I do think it's because we don't tolerate the barn drama. And customers are very similar to employees. You can't tolerate a bad employee because they'll poison the rest of the group, and you can't tolerate a bad customer. And And unfortunately, we've had a few that have exited for that reason. But I think setting the tone and running a really tight ship, it was hard for me in the beginning because horses were not my primary business. They were my release. They were, and so I would agonize over every decision. But then after a while, you literally have to look at it like a business. If I tolerate this from you, I'm going to have 40. And you do have to kind of nip the drama in the bud very quickly because it spreads faster than you can imagine.
So if you're running a boarding barn, you're interviewing this person, as to your example, you want to treat it like a business. So I'm interviewing this person just like I would an employee. Do you interview the horse as much as the boarder? Which comes first?
So interestingly enough, we have a questionnaire. So now we have an application process, which has made it easier. And we have questions about the person and questions about the horse. And we ask about any bad habits. What is your horse like at feeding time? How broke is your horse? Because I have a mix of employees that will have to handle the horses. We communicate to the people that we run a set schedule, that we have a tight ship and expect rules to be followed. They acknowledge that they are okay with that. So we really target both of them because sometimes you can have a great person and a horse that quite frankly could put someone in danger. And that just doesn't work either.
Right.
So.
I think this has been a great, Shelly, I want to thank you for joining us. And Merle, you and I could talk about this for the whole episode. And I think people will
I've got a lot more questions.
so this is, the Kansas City Horse Boarding Association. We did have, and I recommend everybody nationwide to get together with all other boarding barns and share this type of information. It's very helpful. We've been talking with Shelly Phalen at Phalen Equine Wellness Center. Shelly, if people wanted to get a hold of you and talk to you about this subject matter, what's the best way to contact you?
You can either call us at the barn or email us. The primary phone number at the barn is 913-424-3164. Our website is actually PhalenEquestrianCenter.com, and our email is PhalenEquestrianCenter@AOL.com.
Very good. We appreciate again for joining us. Everyone, I want you to stay with us. We're going to have more better horses coming us way. Coming up next, Rex Buckman at the Bayou Ranch. And everyone, stay with us. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And we'll be right back right after these messages. And welcome back to Better Horses. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And, we talked about a lot of controversial subject matter. This is going to be one, but we are going to keep it within horses. And one of the things we're going to talk about is balancing the horses' hooves, and we're going to talk about natural balance and the shoeing method that's going on. But before we get into that, this segment is brought to you by the Pinto Horse Association of America. And Merle, tell them what we have going on this week, actually.
Well, this weekend kicks off the youth speech contest and the youth horse judging contest, followed by 2 weeks long of horse shows of every shape and size. You're not going to want to miss this. It's not too late to enter.
It's going to be the Pinto World Championship. It's starting June 8th through June 22nd. And with us today in this segment, we're going to talk to Rex Buckman. And Rex Buckman is a rancher over there at the Bayou Ranch in the Flint Hills, and he's been working rancher for a long time, purebred Red Angus cow-calf operation out there, and he raises horses and he trains horses also out there, and he runs a really nice cow-calf operation. And Rex Buckman, welcome to Better Horses.
Thank you, Ed. Glad to be here.
Rex, you've been out there at the Flint Hills for so long. I like to tell everybody you're the man that does it all. So you're kind of one of those versatility guys out there. So looking out at the Bayou Ranch, we're going to have a subject matter that most farriers are going to be interested in, and most people that own horses are really going to be interested. And that's a subject matter that you want to bring up called natural balancing the shoe method. Can you talk to me more about that?
Okay, Ed, probably 20 plus years ago, I went to a shoeing clinic held by Gene Ovenchek, and it's the natural balance shoeing method. And before I get into this, I want to tell you that I had a friend in New Mexico said, if you want to know what I know for sure, it'll be a short conversation. but we're going to talk about some things that I suspect, so we can talk about it for hours.
There you go. Here we go.
First of all, let me tell you where to look. It's EDSS, and I believe they're out of Parachute, Colorado. That's where I order all my shoes, and it's Equine Digit Support System. So you can get some actual technical information through that if you Google it. But the thing is, Ed, I was working with some navicular horses, and I was a young horseshoer. I wouldn't call me a farrier, but I was having trouble with some things, like when people asked me to trim their horses without putting shoes on them. They were always lame when I got done trimming them. But one of the first things that impressed me about Gene is he put a barefoot trim on some heavy horses that were pulling a wagon. And after he got them done, after he trimmed them, they went on a sweep and trot, pulling that wagon out over a gravel road and did not limp at all. So that
Wow.
Got my attention. And then the other thing is that I've noticed over these last 20 some odd years is like when people come to the ranch, Ed, and I look at their horses' feet, you know, I've shod for the public a good bit, but never as a full-time farrier, you know. But I look at these horses that come out to the ranch for dude ranch events, and one of the first things that happens is they throw shoes, and it's because of the way they apply the shoe. So another thing that's been interesting over these last 20-some years is I've never had a navicular horse under my care. Now, I've sold horses that naviculared once they went under somebody else's care. So I think there's some things to talk about and think about as we talk about how we apply the shoe to a horse and how we barefoot trim them. So Gene's premise is that you cut the heel off at the back of the foot, you set the shoe on the clean, live, trim sole plane. That's how you determine the angle. And you set the breakover point based on the widest part of the foot, the true apex of the frog. So it's a thumb width from the widest part of the foot to the apex of the frog, and a thumb width from the apex of the frog to the breakover point. Now, those are kind of approximations. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, in my view, a lot of people shoeing horses, you've probably all heard, don't cut the heel off, stand them up. Well,
all the time. I hear that all the time.
Okay. Well, in my observations, that doesn't work, Ed, because if you look at the back of a horse's foot, that heel doesn't grow straight to the ground. It grows at an angle like an underslung boot heel. So when you try to leave the heel, you move that shoe toward the front of the foot and you either leave the heel of the foot unprotected, or a lot of guys will leave shoe back there, and that's what they step on and pull it off. The other thing is, you know, when my dad started me shoeing, he said, you know, don't dub that toe off. And that doesn't work because you can stretch the length of that toe. I just watched, while I was trying to get ready for this deal, I watched Cody Ovanacek talk about the irregularities that can be caused in the foot based on the way you trim them, you know. And one of them is you can stretch that toe out. So from the widest part of the foot to the breakover point should be 50% in front and 50% behind. But by pushing that shoe out past the front of the foot, you can stretch that toe out to where it goes like 60-40 even. So, and the other thing is, when you leave extra heel, you elevate that hind part of the foot off the ground, and you'll shrink, the frog will shrink. And on a properly set horse, they'll have a big, thick, wide, healthy frog. You know, there's good horse shoers and bad horse shoers of every discipline, you know. But I've worked behind some guys that they just pushed that shoe so far forward and pulled the heel by trying to make it taller. They pulled it forward more, until the shoe isn't, with Gene's method, we're trying to arrange the shoe around the reflection of the coffin bone. And on some of these, their foot looks like it'd fit in a teacup, because the longer you leave that heel, the more it contracts. We used to talk about contracted heel and putting too many nails in the back of the shoe. But if you shape the bottom of that foot right, you can nail that heel all the way to the back, and it won't contract that heel. But if you try to artificially elevate that heel, then that heel will contract. So we got lots of observations. I don't know if I can put in words what I'm trying to say.
This has been great. I wanted to let the audience know you're talking to Rex Buckman at the Bar U Ranch, and he is joining us and talking about a subject matter that most farriers need to talk about, and that's natural balancing a shoe method. And Rex, I got to ask you, I think if I wrap this up, you want to really trim the heels in the foot and not increase the length and the width of the base. And yet at the end of the day, you want to encourage that frog to better support the navicular bone or the coffin joint. I may not have that correct or not, but how does what you're saying today have an effect on a normal farrier or your average farrier? How would he disagree or agree with what you're saying?
The first thing is, we used to talk about, Ray Hunt used to say, I'm here for the horse. Well, I'm definitely here for the horse in this subject, because I see a lot of horses that could last a lot longer and travel a lot better if they were properly shod. And so, like, when I was riding horses for the public, which I did for a few years, when they came here traditionally shod, I'd ride them for a while. And I rode some horses that were shod by some world's champion horseshoers, But when I put natural balance shoes on these horses, they traveled better. They came out of the ground easier, and they floated better, and they didn't hit the ground as hard. I know I had a guy working for me one time, and I shot a bunch of colts over the weekend, and he came back, and his comment was, wow, these horses are happy with their feet. So, I think I can tell a difference. I shot with a guy named Brad Derrickson. He's in Albuquerque now, but he used to claim that he can take a second off a barrel racer's time by changing the way they were shod to get them out of the ground, to where they could get out of the ground better.
Wow.
So anyway, like say, I don't shoe horses for the public, and I don't want to shoe horses for the public anymore. But I just think, as a horse owner, you owe it to your horse to investigate this, and maybe you'll decide there's nothing to it, and maybe it'll change the way you want your horses shod. But that, Ed, when you push that shoe to the very front edge of the foot, the breakover point is clear out there in front. Mm-hmm. So, as I understand it, a horse doesn't pick his foot up out of the ground like you and I do. He rolls over it, and then when it breaks over, then it comes in the air and flies forward. Okay. So if you've got that breakover point pushed too far forward, then that causes him to stay in the ground longer, and that sets him up to forge. So his front foot stays in the ground too long, and by that time the hind foot is coming up and hitting that front foot. So, like, when working with a horse that forges, one of the first guys that started me shoeing, he'd square the toe on the back foot, and it really didn't help. It just got the shoe back where it didn't hit the other shoe, but he was still hitting his foot.
Yeah.
But if you move the breakover point further back on the front foot and get that front foot out of the way, then the back foot doesn't hit it.
It hits home. How a heel is trimmed is key to encouraging the good foot function, but you're really getting into the biomechanics of all this and how key. And I liked what you said at the beginning of this segment. It's so vital of how a horse can operate and how sound they can be if they're trimmed properly.
Oh, I wanted to point out something else, Ed. I've read articles written by guys that are studying the conformation of the horse. And one of them said, Never buy a horse with underslung heels or a shallow-heeled horse. And I've got one. Well, you know Pete.
Oh, yeah.
You've ridden Pete
Oh,
out
sure.
there. There's not a horse in the world that has a shallower, more underslung heel than Pete. Pete's lived in the Flint Hills and worked his whole life, and he's about 15, 17 years old, and he's sound as a rock. Here's the thing that I think. If that horse has a shallow, underslung heel, that's the way God made him. And he'll stay sound until you try to change that. But if you try to artificially elevate that heel, then you take his frog off the ground, and that horse he'll probably go navicular. It doesn't look as stout like a big Hancock heel that wants to be a little clubby,
Right.
Or a Wieskamp, what I used to call a Wieskamp foot that has a real shallow heel. That shallow-heeled horse was genetically designed to travel on a shallow heel. And as long as you trim him correctly and let him stay shallow-heeled, he'll be sound forever. The other one, we're talking about those Hancock feet, and I've got some mares that have got some Hancock in them, and they want to be clubby. They want to be a club foot. They've got that big, stout, deep heel that looks like an anvil, But if you're not careful with those horses, you'll let that heel because they grow more straight down, and you can really make a big heel on those horses. But if you do that, here again, you're going to take that frog off the ground and mess with the interaction of the foot with the ground, and those horses will go unsound too. So there's a reasonable point to it.
And if you're just joining us, we are talking to Rex Buckman of the Flint Hills Ranching Adventures. Rex, this has been very interesting talking with you. If somebody would want to get a hold of you and visit a little more about this, or maybe learn about we had Matt Job. Now, don't hold us against this, but we had Matt Job on the show last week, and he was really talking up the Flint Hills Ranching Adventure. So how would somebody get a hold of you if they wanted to do that?
Well, you can go through my Facebook page. I've got Matt and I share the Flint Hills Ranching Adventure page, and I've got a Bar U Ranch page. And then I've got one page that's just my name. And then we have, for our bed and breakfast, we've got Buckman's Stone Horse Inn. So that's one way. And you can call me on my cell phone. It's 620-794-5332 and talk to me. And or just drive out to the ranch. I'll show you some cattle and horses.
There you go.
There you go. Hey, Rex, I want to thank you again for doing that. And thank you for everything you're doing with the horses. And you have a very successful cow-calf operation. And fortunately, we're going to have you come back and talk more about this. And natural balance shoeing method is what Rex has been talking about. He's with the Bar U Ranch in the Flint Hills. We've got more better horses coming your way. I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And we'll be right back right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dylan Luter, a specialist in equine performance medicine at the Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. Our new service focuses on lameness diagnosis, advanced imaging, physical therapy, and regenerative medicine for horses with injuries preventing them from performing at their best. We can treat a variety of conditions and design a customized rehabilitation plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
Hi, I'm Tommy with Heritage Tractor. Whether you're looking to maintain your yard or your whole ranching operation, Heritage Tractor has John Deere mower and tractor packages that make work fly by. With a variety of horsepower and attachment configurations, we have a package to best fit your needs and budget. To learn more about these exclusive packages, visit us in store or online at heritagetractor.com.
Legendary products, extraordinary service. That's our heritage.
Established in 1956, the Pinto Horse Association of America was formed to welcome all types of equines and maintain their show records and pedigrees. PTHA currently has over 88,000 members with 157,000 registered pintos. There are currently 3 separate registries: the Color Registry, the Solid Registry, and the Long Ear Registry. We welcome all levels of competition within a family-friendly environment. Become a member, register, and add value to your horse. For more information, check out the website pintoworld.com.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
It's time to go with United Mosquito and Fly Control's premier fly system for fly control in your barn, providing relief for horses from the stress of fighting flies, and also makes the barn more pleasant for everyone in the barn. Easy, effective, and safe. With United Mosquito and Fly Control, we provide a full service. You as the barn owner don't have to do anything. We go everywhere and take care of everything with our friendly fast service. Call today at 913-558-3814 or email Paul at unitedmosquito.com.
2024 is the year to compete in the world's largest horse show, the Pinto World Championship. This 13-day event begins June 8th, starting with our youth weekend through June 22nd, and caters to all riding levels and ages. With over $1 million in cash and prizes, there are no qualifications required to enter. Held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, located at the Ford Complex, the Pinto World Championship caters to all types of equines. With over 700 classes, the Pinto Show welcomes a variety of breeds to compete. It's a family environment with healthy competition. For more information, check out the website pintoworld.com.
And welcome back to Better Horses. We are going to go on location in mid-Missouri, and we're going to go to a cow-calf operation and talking to Ron Poorman with our Better Cattle segment. But before we do that, I want to let you know that this segment is brought to you by Heritage Tractor, located in the Midwest. And if you're ever looking for any tractors or any servicing by your John Deere dealer, be sure to check out Heritage Tractor. So with me today, we have Ron Poorman, and he has a cow-calf operation located at Bell Farms in mid-Missouri. And we're looking to have him to join us here at Better Horses segment within Better Cattle.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So the one thing I want to ask is describe your operations and what you're doing with cattle today.
Okay. Well, it's a basic cow-calf operation, small operation. We have run mostly Angus Simmental, and we sell the calves. We pull calves twice a year, and spring and fall, and sell them at the local sale barn in Kingsville, Missouri.
So let's talk about the cow-calf operation. Now, you majorly said Angus, and have you experimented with any other breeds?
The history of this place, they ran exclusively Hereford at one time. And then gradually, different owners came in, the current owner, and they started leaning more toward Angus. And so for quite a while, we ran Angus Hereford, and we still have some of that bloodline in the herd that we have now. But our bulls are registered Angus right now. We've got 3 of them.
Okay, Ron, can we talk about the market conditions and how many head of cattle do you run?
I have 60 mama cows, 3 bulls, and right now we're right about 40 calves out in pasture. So
for that size operation, market conditions are pretty important to you then?
Yeah, they're very important. I probably, to be honest, I'm probably not as good about tracking it as I ought to be, but we have a couple sale barns that where we do business with, and so we do check in on their prices. And right now, it's looking pretty good. From what I understand, the demand is good everywhere, and we're just taking advantage of that as best we can.
So what are some of the challenges or tailwinds you have in raising these type of cattle that you always have to be cognizant of?
Well, it's like all ranching and farming, it's a balance of input and what you get out of it, right? So the input keeps, it requires more. Always the weather factors and dealing with, what the feeders want to buy, and there are just so many factors. So in my case, pretty much a one-person operation as far as the day-to-day work. So it's a lot, and so we're always keeping an eye on the cost of feed, and we do our own hay, which is helpful, but that also requires input. So same with the pastures,
So with an operation at your level, are you buying or are you selling? Where's from going into this summer, what's your thought process?
We're really, in fact, I'm getting ready to pull some yearling calves, so they'll go to market fairly soon here, and then I'm going to be concentrating on haying. So, So on the other hand, we are looking to expand a little bit, so I'll be kind of keeping my eye on trying to decide whether to hold back some heifers and replace the bulls or go the other route. So haven't decided yet.
So you're probably one of the few operations that are still using horses at this point, and segue into the better horses segment. You're still rounding these cattle up just the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I don't have a. I'd like to have a four-wheeler sometimes, but I don't have one. Anyway, but that's one thing I particularly enjoy about this job is I get to be horseback a lot, and a lot of the terrain here between pastures is very hilly, rocky, a lot of trees and so forth. So really horseback is kind of the only way that I can do it sometimes as far as gathering cattle and that sort of thing. So when it comes to gathering, I do pasture doctoring and sorting, even penning, all of that. It's horseback, and I enjoy it, but I'm old school.
Let's dovetail into that. Let's talk about biosecurity. What are you looking at as far as diseases? Are you seeing anything in this area?
Well, the big thing that everybody in Missouri deals with is anaplasmosis. So that's something that we're aware of, and that we actually have treated our entire herd on tetracycline and so forth. Other than that, I don't think there's anything particularly scary or different this year.
Now, for all our listeners that are not into cattle, can you explain that one more time?
Okay, sorry. So anaplasmosis is in all over the state of Missouri, and it's a parasitic type of microorganism. It's not quite. It's bigger than a virus, smaller than a bacteria. And I'm not scientific enough to explain it much more than that, but what it does is it attaches to the red blood cells. And so they become anemic, and as a result, they don't get enough oxygen to the tissues. So it's a kind of strange disease because, or infection rather. Some cattle can be carriers, and there's no signs. And oftentimes the only sign you have is when it's almost too late. So it's all the ranchers in Missouri are kind of, it's something we're all familiar with and are mindful of.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the final question before I let you go, when you look at your cattle and you saddle up your horse, is this not the best job you ever had?
Yeah, 100%. There's no... I don't have to think about that one. No.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, first of all, let me thank you officially for taking time out to talk to Better Horses and giving us a spin on better cattle. So Ron Poorman at Bell Farms, located in Missouri. And I also want to thank Ron Poorman for allowing me to come out to his cow-calf operations. And I got to tell you, Bell Farms is really a great place. That barn, and I know our listening audience can't see this, but it was built back in 1904. It was just fun to be around. Oh, and so we appreciate everybody's efforts on better cattle. We always try to bring that to you every week. And Merle, I think that's our show. We're going to leave it there.
And if any of our listeners are thinking, hey, we missed the first segment, or we want to hear more of Better Horses, you can always catch Better Horses podcast wherever you find your podcast.
And look for our summer paper that's coming out. We also have and encourage you to subscribe to Better Horses newspaper. And as always, look for us on TV, Better Horses Television on RFD, the Cowboy Channel, and now streaming on Equus TV.
We also want to give a special thanks to the team behind the scenes, our radio producer, Brianna Johnson, our TV producer, Kelly Creech, and of course, all of our sponsors.
So we want all of you good buckaroos and buckarettes. We want you to mind your moms and dads and be brave, but don't take any chances out there. Until next time, I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
Happy trails, and always ride for the brand.